that are in the, with AARP. But there's also a whole bunch of different scams that are focused on veterans or their family members or active duty people because of their status. Because they get targeted for the benefit dollars in scams around the Veterans Administration or state veteran benefits. I know in Washington we have quite a few veteran benefits in the state, and most states do that. So those become targets. They're targeted for their pension money, especially what we call a lump sum buyout kind of thing, where and I got these when I retired. A bunch of emails saying, "Hey, why draw a monthly retirement check? Why not let us just give you a lump sum of money right now, and you can go buy that boat or whatever." And so, in reality, that was a terrible financial opportunity, because the amount of money that you would get by waiting for your benefits far outweighed what they would pay you in a lump sum. But those types of things are usually focused on veterans because they're veterans. There's also investment scams, and there's always fake veteran charities. I mean, there's charities are a hotbed anyway, because they're easy to set up and easy to run and easy to skim money off of. And it appears, especially these days, where there's a lot of support for veterans and support for the military, that sticking the name veteran or some sort of veteran cause in the title of your organization kind of brings the money in. So there's a lot of fake charities or charities that are a little sketchy involved in veteran issues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, is there anything specific that has been pointed out by either consumer, veterans, or government entities that's happening right now that's unusual?
Yeah, 2 days ago on Wednesday, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, issued a warning that there's scammers are actively now posing as representative of businesses that tend to cater to veterans. There's a couple of insurance companies, USAA is one. There's a couple of investment companies and Navy Federal Credit Union, those types of things that tend to focus on veterans or their family members as customers, or active duty as customers, are actively calling and saying, "Hey, they're from that," and the typical line that they give, right? Your account is been taken over. We need to sign onto your computer to fix it. Give us your personal information. We need to verify it, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the FTC says now they've spotted some that are specifically aiming at veterans based on the organizations that veterans and their family members use, or businesses rather.
Okay. Are there any other, veteran scams or methods out there that, you want to touch on today?
Well, there's clearly there's the veterans and active duty military member. One of the constants in our lives was moving. And one of the ones that has been a constant problem, is not just shown up, has been moving scams. And when you retire or get out of the service, the Air Force will move you, or the military will move you to your final destination, wherever your home of record is called. Or when you move from one duty station to another, if you hire the mover, there's a lot of scams in the moving industry, and there's a lot of things they do. One of the things they do is what's called hostage loads, where if you don't, you say, "I have all this stuff to move," and they give you a price, and then they get it on the truck and drive away, and then suddenly they present you with, "Oh, by the way, there's an addendum to the contract. It's costing us more to do it, so we need another $1,000." And if you say, "Heck no," they say, "Fine, you're not going to get your stuff back." So that's what we mean by hostage loads. And that's a continuing problem within the moving industry, but it especially focuses on veterans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I was moving across country, and suddenly the truck was too big to get up my particular avenue.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Couple $1,000 later, because I had moved, 3 kids across the country. I just said,
yeah. Well, that's what they're counting on, right? They're counting on the fact that you want your stuff, and moving is extremely stressful, and even for folks that have done it every 3 or 4 years. And so it's one of those things that that emotion, again, they play on that emotion, that they want to get you to switch off logical thought because your emotions are heightened. In this case, it's frustration, right? Just give me the darn.
Just give me my stuff.
Yeah. And I'll sign anything. Just give me my stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Patrick, who's had a couple of great questions here, is asking, how can I ensure this doesn't happen with a moving company?
Well, there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, obviously, never do a move without doing some due diligence on the moving company. There's a Federal Motor Transportation Safety Administration has a rate the mover or a moving registration database. You can go online and check the mover, do some due diligence to make sure they're registered. It doesn't ensure that they're not going to give you problems, but it certainly lessens the idea that, based on the idea if they're crooks, they're not going to register themselves with the federal government. The other thing is to always make sure whatever you do is very detailed in writing. The price is there, and that you've really kept an eye on what they're charging and looked for any hidden charges. The other thing, which is kind of interesting, is be suspicious or be concerned or cautious, let's just say, if they don't, if they just basically say, here, fill in the questionnaire online and we'll give you a quote, right? If they don't come out and look at your stuff, or at least like, I've heard done and we've done, do a video walk around of looking at your stuff so they can get they don't have to actually come out there and to do an estimate, but they can at least see all the particular specific stuff you have. That might be a cause for concern. And then always you can switch, you try to stick with some of the known companies that are out there. Even though they're franchises, you have some recourse if they do some funny stuff with your household goods.
And remember, if you don't mind my throwing this in here, there's two ends to this transaction. You may contract with a national moving company if this is a long distance move, but you need to know who is executing it on the other end, because that's where I got trapped. I did not ask about the end transaction and who was executing on it, and they're the ones who took advantage of me. So, well, anyway, I think we have probably flogged that horse to death.
Beat that horse to death, yeah.
So we have had quite a number of folks join us since we got started, and we're delighted that you're here. And remember that this exchange of information, this Q&A, is all about you, because that's what we're here for. And even if you don't have a fully formed question in your mind, but you're curious about a topic related to fraud, and it can be certainly veterans fraud, because that's a timely topic right now, but it can also be any topic around fraud. We are happy to take it on. So please, use your chat box. You can sing right out and just say, I have a question, and just let us know. Okay. Let's kind of look at another timely topic. And that has to do with, holiday scams are coming up. In fact, I think we're doing a presentation next month on Fraud Watch Friday, second Friday of the month, perhaps, on holiday scams. But you're probably going to be doing a lot of your shopping in the next several weeks. So we thought we would give you the opportunity also to ask questions about, what's going on with holiday scams. We see it every year. We talk about it every year. Dave, why don't you give us a rundown on our most common ones?
I will comment and say, unless you're like me, who does all your shopping in the last 2 days before Christmas.
Well, I understand that one too.
That's me too. So, as always, we have scammers love the holidays. And there's several things that have contributed to the fact that online shopping problems are like the third most common problem the FTC has figures show in the country, and having to do with scams. The third most popular scam is you order something online and don't get it. You order something and what you get is not what you ordered, and you can't have any recourse, or they just take your money and disappear. So there's several things you can look for. First type, the first thing is fake websites is a big problem. I talk to people on the helpline sometimes who have gone to a website and it looks like a company, and they order something and their money is just gone. But there are usually some giveaway. I mean, some red flags that you might see if you go to a website that you see on Facebook. Be very cautious if you get in like Marketplace on Facebook or one of those online social media things, because those are overwhelmingly fraudsters or sketchy at times. But if you go to if you click on one of those and you go to a URL, a website that's kind of gibberish, that just looks like made up numbers and letters, or at the other end of the spectrum, very, very close to a legitimate company name, like instead of, the company name has an O in it, it's a 0 instead of that to make it look like intentionally the company name, then that's a red flag. If you have a site that has really blurred photos, or some of the photos don't appear to match what the labels are, or the descriptions are, then that could be because they're lazy and they didn't go out and do a good job of getting photos. As always, misspellings or bad grammar on the websites or in correspondence with them. And also, here's what I do a lot of times if I don't know the site, is I will type the site, www.isthisafraud.com space scam or fraud. And if I put those in quote, if I put the URL, the website name, in quotation marks, and then put a scam or fraud or reviews, that'll give me, folks usually online at Scam Busters or one of those websites that say, hey, don't put your money here, it's a scam. Or you at least get reviews that tell you, hey, this thing I got was really shoddy. It was, it really didn't do the job. So those are good things. Just searching with whatever the website is with the word scam after it, or reviews, will give you a good idea of whether the thing is good. Now with reviews, you have to be careful. That's another type of scam we see a lot of online. There's phony reviews out there all over the place. Companies that have folks that they pay to put great reviews, or they have staffers that sit down and write these effusive reviews. Again, there's a few red flags. If you look at the reviews on a product or a website that you're thinking of buying from, and all of them are extremely positive, they're excessively positive. There's nobody that has a negative review. These guys look like they're solving world hunger and going to contribute to world peace. Then that may be a red flag, right? That's probably because everybody has somebody who's disgruntled and will write a bad review. Also, if you see the reviews are all dated the same day, or within a day or two of each other, or really close together, that's a red flag also. And then if you read the reviews and they all sound alike, they use the same language, that's the third problem. So those are a couple of things that to delve a little. And you're right, we'll talk a little bit more about holiday scams at our second Friday Fraud Watch. A little bit more of the red flags that you can have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Because much of what you say happens just any day that, even non-holidays, but it does tend to, I think you said a third of the fraud that's reported.
Yeah, it's the third most common fraud.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. Now we have Shelley who's asking a question about delivery scams. Can you, kind of tell us a little bit about that generally, and then we'll follow up with, talking about like, say, text messages and things like that.
Yeah, delivery scams are one of those things, and everybody's got emails or text messages that say, hey, this is UPS or FedEx or, a place where you would buy at a store, Nordstrom or whatever. We tried to deliver something for the Postal Service, and we have a delivery for you, and you missed it. So click on this link and sign in and give us your name and social security number, and we'll give you, we'll send you your stuff. Pay us $5 more and as a redelivery fee, and we'll bring it back to you. If you get those, first of all, the Postal Service does not require you to do that. They're going to try to redeliver it at least 3 times before they send it back. At least that's the rules that I've heard of. Secondly, if nobody should be asking you to pay a fee to redeliver something. So that if they try to charge you money to try to deliver it to you, whether that's, I mean, UPS doesn't do it, FedEx doesn't do it, the Postal Service, none of the reputable services do. That's the thing. And the third thing is, kind of like ask yourself logically, am I expecting anything? I wouldn't know, but I always ask my wife, and she knows exactly what she's expecting to get from either her craft supplies or something else. And so, if we get one of those things that says, hey, there's a FedEx box, hey, are we expecting a delivery? And if you're not expecting a delivery, then be a little cautious about it, especially if they call you and demand money or demand gift cards or any of the standard things we always harp about.
Okay, that's really great information. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about fake text messages, don't we?
Yeah.
We talk a lot about that, and you have to really think about it. We had a question a couple of minutes ago from Patrick about charity scams. And of course, we are always very often thinking about those over the holidays, right?
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about some of the things, that I would do to recognize and avoid them.
Well, again, the first thing is look for the same things we talked about with the fake websites, right? Charities are easy to set up and it's easy to call them anything you want to. But there's another thing you got to worry about charities is the fact that scammers are extremely adept at leveraging natural disasters and things like that, and will, hurt, like the snowstorm that has happened up in Buffalo and in the Northwest. There'll probably be some scammers out there today saying, Red Cross needs extra money, give us, to help those poor folks that are having problems in the snowstorm, give some money to the Red Cross, and you're really not giving to the Red Cross. So make sure that you understand what you're giving to. Make sure that you do some due diligence on the charity itself. There's a thing called Charity Navigator. It's a really good website. The Better Business Bureau has a charity. I think it's called give.org or give.com, one or the other. That is really good about telling you if there's been complaints about a charity. And one of the things you have to worry about a charity too is that, they will you bring in all this money. And one way that scammers manipulate that is they manipulate what their overhead is, right? Their overhead being, salaries and administrative costs for the offices and all that stuff, to where it turns out, like Charity Navigator has a really good lot of information on this. What percentage of every dollar that you give actually goes to the cause, right? And a lot of the fraudulent ones you can spot because their reportings would say from their financial statements that they have to file with various government bodies show that, 90% of the money goes to administrative overheads. So you've got the CEOs of these things driving Porsches and living in, multi-million-dollar houses, and a very small amount actually goes to the cause. So do some due diligence and give with a credit card. Don't give with a gift card or cash, because credit cards always give you recourse. A lot of like American Express cards will have recourse to actually get money back or protect it in some way. So use the credit cards to pay for things and invest, not just send them a check. Because if you send them a check or give them a debit card, your money is pretty much gone.
Excellent. In fact, we want to thank Patrick for a question directed exactly at that. And one other thing you mentioned, you were talking about how when you research a charity, you wanted to see, how well do they use their money? Does 60% of it go to fundraising costs?
Yeah.
There are so many fundraising organizations out there, some of which are perfectly legitimate. They do good.
Yep.
Others, not so much. And that's what I love about Charity Navigator, is the fact that it gives you a pie chart, because what they do is they go and they look at the tax forms from these charities, and they tell you exactly what percent of donations go to a particular thing. And you find, magnificently run organizations that have the majority of their money going to the charity and not to administration costs or to fundraising. Now, again, professional fundraising in many cases, is a necessity because these are very, very large organizations. But again, 60%,
Yeah.
that's not where you want your money going.
You're basically then just a money generating machine, right? That's all you are.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. Yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine. And just because it is, I'll bring up one more thing is you can find charities that sound exactly like, oh yeah, I know that charity.
Yeah.
But they will say Red Cross of something. Guess what? That's not the American Red Cross, right?
Yep.
So again, when you see that, go to one of those websites that Dave mentioned, give.org, charitynavigator.org, and look them up and carefully type in the same name that you saw, in the communication that you received, and just see if that really is what you think it is. Okay, thank you. And we have had a very, very patient Cindy who has asked us a question here that we want to address. And this, this is something to be concerned about 365 weeks a year. Days.
Sometimes years feel like 365.
Yeah, this is November. Anyway, Cindy says, I've been informed by Equifax that my phone number, social security number, date of birth are on the dark web. I've set up a fraud alert, but don't know how this happened and how to prevent it. Can you address that? That's a big topic, really.
Yeah. Welcome to the club. Actually, I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but almost everybody's personal information is available on the dark web at some point in time, because there's so many sources that these guys use to put together your information for sale. I mean, they can be a data breach, it can be a actual frauds call that you get that tricks you into giving your information. It can be, depending on what the information is, whether it's your banking information or Social Security. There's a lot of legitimate places that, I mean, if you were in the military, for example, when I was way back in the 80s, as an officer, they used to publish our Social Security number in the congressional record. You got promoted, your Social Security. So, you could actually go and look, go to the library or whatever and look up copies of the congressional record and see lists of officers' names with their Social Security number. So, I mean, there's all kinds of sources where that comes from. And it's really, really hard in the data breach industry, where I worked for a little while, responding to data breaches and handling them. It's really, really hard to say, I was defrauded on Thursday, December the 12th, and that came from this breach right here, because there's so many breaches, and there's a lot of breaches that don't go reported, and so or don't even get found. So it's very hard to point to a given data breach and say that's where the information came from. But data breaches are a place. Government agencies, the VA, I mean, all the major government agencies, VA, DOD, all, Health and Human Services, all have had various types of data breaches in the past. And your Social Security number doesn't change. So that once if it was a breach in 1995 that happened before we really got excited about data breaches in a big way as a society, then it's still the same. So it's really kind of pointless, I guess, to try to worry about how it happened. But you did exactly the right thing by putting a fraud alert. I would suggest putting a freeze on your credit history. Call Equifax. You have to contact each one of them, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and put a data freeze on your account, because a freeze is different than an alert. An alert is something that the credit bureaus will put on your account, and if somebody tries to open an account, or you even try and open an account, they're supposed to call you or text you or email you and say, hey, somebody's messing with like Equifax did. Somebody's trying to start an account. That's you. Mm-hmm. That's okay. And you can continue to do that. But a freeze basically is like locking up your credit history, and you have the key, and only you can unlock it. So they really can't do that. It's the difference between having a burglar alarm and a locked front door, really. If you don't have a lock on your front door, but you have a burglar alarm, it'll alarm when you open the door. It may not keep the guy out, but it'll still alarm. The lock is the lock, and it's not going to let him in.
Excellent. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, what can we do once the information is out there?
Well,
how do we do that
yeah.
research to find out if it's there, and what do we do about it?
Well, there's a couple of really good websites having to do with identity theft. Uh, the Federal Trade Commission has one that's probably one of the best. It's called identitytheft.gov. And you can do two things there. You can look at the remediation steps for fixing it. They have a whole list of things to do if you think you're a victim or afraid that you might be the victim of identity theft. And a lot of those are preventative. So if you do them, they're not, they're going to keep an alert on your account for a period of time that will prevent any future things. So that's good. If you think you're a victim of identity theft, or you think you're at a higher risk because, like you did, Equifax told you that they found it on the dark web, or that somebody was trying to use your information fraudulently, then you can report it also at that website, and they'll give you a remediation step or a remediation plan at the end of when you file a report. We want you to report it because that helps us keep track of that. That's one of the best things, is just take some proactive things, monitor your accounts, freeze your credit, be proactive and concerned, and take responsibility for yourself on these types of things, and develop a series of steps, kind of a routine that you go in every few weeks or a month or so, and do some things. Like, I check my credit at annualcreditreport.com, because you can do it now until the end of the year every week if you want to. I go on every month and check my credit, even though I have companies one of the other things you can do is, if you get told by a company that you're a victim of a data breach, always accept credit monitoring. They'll give you credit monitoring. That's kind of the standard. Now, if you're a company and you lose people's personal information, one of the standard things, table stakes we used to call it, is offer that credit monitoring. Always accept that, because it's free. You may have to pay for it after the first year or two or three or whatever after it expires, but always do that, because it doesn't cost you anything, and some of those services are pretty good.
And one last thing, I think we talked about it last month, as a matter of fact, about if you go online and you put in a name, your name or someone else's, and you see all of these websites that say, find out about so and so, yeah, tell us about those organizations, and can we do anything about the information that they have in their possession?
Well, by law, you can always go on and ask them to take it off. They all have a process of some sort, the ones I looked at. Because when we had this on there, I actually did that and went through the process of getting my information removed from some of these, because these are what's called aggregators. And a lot of the information they get is, because we're an open society, it's in public records. They'll have your deeds, they'll have your addresses, they'll have how much you paid for your house and all this stuff. And they get those by employing people to go to the courthouse and actually look at that information, or look at it online and compile it. So you can't really stop them from doing that, because it's all public information, or most of it is. But what you can do is go, do what Ann said, Google yourself or search for your name, find all these different companies that say they have information on you, and then go to them. You don't have to be a member or pay them anything, and request them to remove your information. You can usually just, use the search for the company name and then say the words opt out, OPT-OUT, OPT-OUT is usually the way you can find how to opt out from all these things having your information online.
That's terrific. Thank you so much. Now I want to give folks a chance to ask some more questions. Patrick is asking, I saw a piece on one of the evening news about how thieves steal checks out of mailboxes, change the information on the check to steal money. I believe it was called check washing. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. Now, as so many things on the news, I saw that same piece, and it was really interesting, because they were treating it like it was something new, and oh my God, this is something coming. It's called check washing. Check washing's been around for decades, and what they do is they will. Now the twist is they're pretty brazen about actually going into the mailboxes, even the blue mailboxes that we've always told people to use, as opposed to having unlocked mailboxes on front of their house. Don't ever leave a check in an unlocked mailbox. Period. End of discussion. Find it. Go to the post office and go inside and put the check in the mail, because now they've got instances where, in fact, this report had pictures of a guy what's called fishing the mailbox, which he takes like a string and has some sticky stuff, and he goes in and pulls mail out of the blue mailbox. And this was done in broad daylight. Then they take the checks out of that, and what they do is they use chemicals to take off the payee name, and to usually tamper with the amount. They leave your signature alone because they have to have that. And they may change the date too. And then they put themselves in there or put whatever they want to and however much they want to put in there. And then they cash the check. So, the way to get around that, do online banking. That's the easiest, best way to do it. And it's much safer because, having a check and having check washing is not going to go away, and it's been around a long time. And one of my relatives was a sheriff's deputy, and he was telling me that he pulled over people with, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of mail in their backseat of their car, including checks. And, with credit card machines and all kinds of stuff, clearly that person was up to no good. So it is a big deal. It's a lot of money that's involved and lost. It's not just kind of a one-off. So the best way around that is there are pens that can't be washed, where the ink can't be washed off. Some checks, I think, have paper, but the best way is to go with online banking. It's much, much safer.
And which brings us to the fact that in this season, there are people roaming neighborhoods looking for packages to pick up.
Old porch pirates. Yeah.
Absolutely. And they can be mailbox pirates as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So not only we need to be careful about outgoing checks, but if someone is sending you checks, you want to be even more vigilant this time of year, because more people are out there looking for the opportunities, unfortunately.
Yep. And just be alert too. I want, just a quick personal story. I live in a house in a neighborhood that has these big mailboxes for the whole neighborhood that are locked, and you walk down to the mailbox. And one day my wife and I came home, and there was a guy parked in a car who had the mailboxes open, who wasn't in a mail truck. He had all the mailboxes open. And I was like, well, that doesn't look right. So I called the post office. Turns out he was a maintenance guy doing routine maintenance on them.
Okay.
But be alert, and if something doesn't seem right, say something to somebody. Call the post office if somebody looks like your mail has been tampered with. But take responsibility for yourself. Don't put a check, outgoing check, in a unlocked mailbox. Get a lock for your box. And if you've got a check, go into the post office and put it inside the post office as opposed to right in front, because now they're getting the keys and opening those blue mailboxes too.
And you do see more and more and more locked mailboxes on the street, and that's great. And I did that, when I moved into this home. And they're not cheap. And one, you don't want to go cheap when you're talking about a locked mailbox. But two, the possibilities of fraud or anything else happening is so much greater and so much more expensive than the cost of that locked mailbox.
Yep. Really.
So if you can, definitely do that. So, okay, now we are entering the last few minutes of our time here. So I want to be sure that we give you a few minutes to, if you have a question on your mind or a topic that you wish to talk about, please type that into the chat box while we're kind of wrapping up here. But there is one other topic that came to mind this week as I was looking through the news, and it was all about Medicare open enrollment fraud. Okay, This is the window,
right,
in which, whether it's Medicare or whether it's other insurance, this is the open enrollment period. And scammers love to jump in on that type of thing. So tell us a little bit about, how do I spot those scams, and what do I do? What do they look like even?
Don't you love all the mail you get? That's
my goodness.
So, a lot of the things you'd be looking for in a Medicare, the open enrollment type of scam is pretty much what you'd be looking for in any other kind of identity theft situation. they'll call you or text you and say, this is, they'll imply they're from Medicare. Medicare's not going to call you, first of all. And they're not going to, legitimate Medicare employees, they have your Medicare number. They're not going to need your Medicare number. They don't need your Social Security number. They certainly don't need your bank account information. So if anybody calls and claims to be from Medicare or from a company with Medicare, because they play fast and loose with the wording to make you appear to be from the government, just hang up, because they're a fraud. If the Medicare guys want to talk to you, they'll mail you. They'll do some other thing. Secondly, we all know now, if you've been a regular viewer, that caller ID can be spoofed on your phone. So if you get something that says Medicare on your caller ID, that's probably not Medicare. So just either don't answer it or hang up on it. Or let it go to voicemail. If it's really Medicare, they're going to call you back, or they're going to leave a message. Third, like we always say, don't be rushed into anything. Don't get flustered and get your emotions going. You have until December 7th to enroll. So, they don't offer any kind of incentive or extra benefits for signing up early. So take your time and be deliberative about it and do some due diligence and think about it. Don't be rushed into anything. Or somebody who calls you and says, you got to make a decision right now, or Medicare is going to take away your benefits. Garbage. They're not going to take they can't be taken away from you if you qualified for them. And for not signing up for a Medicare plan, they're not going to take away any of your benefits. So don't think about that. If they do try to do that, hang up on them, because that's a real red flag. Medicare doesn't really prefer any care plan or any kind of plan. If anybody suggests that their plan is preferred by Medicare, hang up, because they don't endorse specific plans. They go to a lot of lengths to try to be neutral. There's if you feel like there's Medicare fraud, if you feel like you've been charged for things, or there's things been charged to your Medicare account that you think is a problem, you can always call our hotline, 877-908-3360. Or there's another Medicare fraud line at smpresource.org. That's what it is, SMP Resource. There's also a lot of resources on Medicare and Medicaid. So the Elder Care Locator, there's a toll-free number, 800-677-1116. All of those numbers can give you more about information about Medicare plans, so you don't base your decision on something that is not true, or just somebody's trying to sell you something or take something from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That's okay. Great. We also want to thank Deb Beasley for her comment on YouTube. And we're always appreciative of the folks who join us, not only on Zoom, but on YouTube as well. So thank you so much, Deb, for your comment. And we want to thank all of you for joining today. And we want to let you know that, of course, we do this the third Friday of each month. And we also have a Fraud Watch brief presentation, usually about 20 minutes worth, on the second Friday in the same time slot. So we invite you to join us again on the third Friday of each month, and bring your questions, because that's what we're all about. So anything that you'd like to add, Dave, before we close out the session?
Just be aware and alert during the holidays, because this is a prime time for these guys.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we will look forward to seeing you next month. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.